Welcome to the Excellence Foresight podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Noemi. I'm a Shingo affiliate since many years, and today I'm very pleased to be hosting Gwendolyn Galsworth. We met together in Germany back in 2019 when I've attended the first Shingo European conference. Gwendolyn, welcome. Gwendolyn is a PhD. She's considered by many the world's leading expert in visual workplace, visual management as a concept, paradigm, and transformational practice. She's very hands-on, working with companies in every part of the globe. She's author of 7 books on the topic, and Dr. Galsworth will release 2 more in 2025. She's a Shingo Faculty Fellow, Shingo Academy Member, and frequent keynote speaker. You can visit her website for 100 plus free articles, free videos, and free podcasts. You can visit the website on visualworkplace.com. Gwendolyn, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure indeed, Nancy. I really value our collaboration. Thank you.
And I'm so pleased that this is the first guest we are in the same country now. So both of us are in Ireland, enjoying the sunny day here in Ireland today. So let's dive into the topic of today, visuality.
Please.
Let's start with the big picture of visuality. Gwendolyn, can you explain visuality in the simplest terms for our guest today?
It will be simple terms, but it will be for some people new terms, because through my years, even decades, working with the paradigm and developing it, the realization I had that simplified everything for me is that visuality is a language. It is a language that's made up of visual devices. It isn't just a tool. It isn't an intervention. It isn't simply a solution. When we look at it big picture, we understand that these devices can and should talk to us, and talk to us as a whole vocabulary of operational excellence. And I'll say something else to set the foundation. Visuality is about information that is interpreted into a solution. But big picture, as I said a moment ago, the devices talk to each other. The devices become the language of operations, and the devices connect the enterprise. And that's the big picture.
Thank you. And I really like the fact that you mentioned solutions. You mentioned talking to us. So it's really a way where we can engage, right, the workforce. Now, we know that visual management has been around for a while, but visuality takes it further. So how does it go beyond just putting up a few signs and charts? What is the important thing that it brings?
Well, the important thing is there's about a dozen important things, but I would say the under the horizon part of what I just said about it being a language is who creates this language. And that's the cultural component of visuality. That visual devices, even though they're inspired by devices that you see elsewhere, cannot be imported solution by solution. It's an idea, it's a concept. A solution represents a way of presenting information that makes it readily available, makes it complete to its purpose, makes it accurate and precise. But the thinking behind that design is done by the people who use them. That means operators, that means supervisors, that means CEOs, that means maintenance, that means marketing, finance. So depending on your function, your words are going to be changed, the solutions, but they will be looking at quality and safety and connectivity and speed or accelerated flow, called speed. They will be looking at the operational parameters that make up your KPIs. And they are, if you use this language, also your KBIs, your KPIs, key performance, key production indicators, and, or I believe it is key performance indicators, yes, and KBIs, key behavioral indicators. The behavioral aspect of our operations and of our success, of our effectiveness, really came about as a surfaced element about 10 years ago. We were greatly helped by the Shingo Prize. Great, my pin, my Shingo Prize pin. This is my favorite. We get a different one every year. This one I've had pre-COVID. I like it very much. Has the flame of the Shingo. Yes, thank you. I have an extra one, so next time I see you. Um, the the whole idea was always embedded in the Toyota production system, but it was surfaced in great part by the work that Dr. Stephen Covey did with the Shingo Prize about 10 years ago, and helping them name. He helped the Shingo Prize name principles of that model as compared to just outcomes or tools. And that was really revolutionary. And during that time, the idea of KBIs came in, that we can actually track and measure, quantify, and improve people behaviors, which is just extraordinary. And of course, this is your work, Nancy, and it is the work of all of us who work in business and industry. We have to look at the how, not just the what or even the why, but how things come into place. And we have to be careful that this allows people to make their contribution, to become engaged, to become spirited, to, in a sense, find a second life at work and a meaningful one. And visuality is all of those things. Visuality is a creative process. People learn how to think visually. They learn about motion, which I'm sure we won't have time to talk about today in any depth that satisfies me. But emotion, which is the way we dig into missing information. And that people are the scientists of visuality and of visual thinking. So, yes, that's right, culture. You're right.
Yeah, our work with the Shingo model teaches us how important is it to focus on people and have a human-centric culture. And all what you've spoken about goes into that direction. How to engage people, give them the information, make them part of the process, tap on their creativity. So all of this is really very important, I think, for organizations willing to move forward.
Well said.
Awesome. Thank you. And the key behavior indicator, I think, is new to our audience. So, my second question would be about what's the most unexpected place you've seen visuality successfully applied in?
I have two of them. Not visuality as an intentional outcome, but a purposeful outcome. I remember I was going for a walk. I was doing a presentation in Colorado, which is really farm country. There's a lot of rural aspects and also wilderness aspects of Colorado. I was walking along a road and just walking along a road, green here, cows and green there. And as I walked along, I saw painted in the roadway stripes, and they were stripes going horizontally across the road. And there was no one around, so it wasn't a walking band. It was just there in the road. Bars, two different colors, white and black, white and black, white and black, about 6 deep. And I thought, wow, what could this be? There's no one around, barely a car. I'm the only human in sight. And I'm walking along, and I pass the cows. And I look in at the cows. And just as I'm doing that, a car comes by, and I go out into the road because I'm a curious person. And I wave him down, and there was no emergency. It wasn't the middle of the night. He slows down. Guy slows down. And I said, please help me out. I'm a stranger here. I'm just a visitor. Tell me what those lines are that you just crossed over. He said, they're for the cows. They keep the cows from wandering off. And I said, what are you talking about? It's two-dimensional. There's no barrier. It's not like the bars that you see in the grid that keeps cows from crossing out of the field onto the road, because the cow puts the hoof, I should say, on the bar and slips. And of course, it doesn't take long for the cow to say, I'm not going near that. And he said, it works the same way. We don't know why. If we put it visually on the road, the cows don't go near it. And so I said, oh, thank you. And then I began to research. And the research is that the cows will not will not work where they cannot see the bottom of an empty space. That's the trigger mechanism. And it really is hard-won research because you're not asking the cows what's going on. You're testing. I mean, that's the hypothesis right now, that because of the black and the contrast with the white, you have a space, you have a void. And the cows have it built in, kind of programmed in. They don't go where they can't see the bottom.
Very interesting.
And you know what that feeds into directly? Something, and I'll give you the example of the second one, which is even more amazing. That one's from Australia. What it feeds into is the mechanism of our brain. Even though in some cases it's microscopic, every living creature that moves on the earth, I'm not sure about where it is on trees. That's another discussion, but has a brain, and the brain functions in a particular way. And most have eyes. Some don't, very deep into the sea. They don't have eyes. They don't need them. And these are two separate organisms in the human. The eyes are is one organism, and the brain is another. So it's a collaboration between. It's not as though it's one mechanism. Also, the way I thought until I started to look into neuroscience a little bit further. 50% of the human's involuntary brain function is dedicated to visuality, to seeing, to finding that which is visual, to finding visual data in the seeable environment and interpreting it. 50% of our involuntary brain. And what's so interesting about that is, as you know, we've been told since we've been little that humans only use 10% of their brain. That's the voluntary part of their brain. But 50% of what's left, so you got 90% there.
I can totally relate.
Voluntary. 50% of that, 90% is left, 50% of that 90% is dedicated to visuality. And so when we go into an environment, a factory, even an office, an agency, a military depot, and visuality is not the embedded language of production, the operational language of production, the human is always stressed out. Always stressed out. You will get this experience when you go into a factory or office the first time and you stand at the threshold. As a consultant, this is a very good exercise to do with your clients. And what your brain is doing is this, and they are consulting questions. What am I seeing? Can't interpret anything. I can't anchor anywhere. I can't differentiate. I can't see, and therefore I'm in danger. And this state will continue until it simply drops back, but the question never goes away. The brain is always working on making that connection, doing its purpose, which is to help the eyes take the information from the eyes and say to the mechanism, to the body, to the instrument, to us, you're okay, you're safe. And if that doesn't happen, the noise is always in the brain. So visuality, honestly, these are perhaps subtle when you first think of it, but a non-visual workplace is by definition a stressful workplace. Get permutations of that. Consequences of that are bad quality, of just making mistakes, accidents, confusion, but you also get frustration, demoralization, this discouragement. You also get from that anxiety, irritation that easily moves into anger, and then suppressed anger, and then guilt, and then blame, and then all of this emotional noise. It's critically important that we see. I'm giving you a longer answer, but it was such a great question because we opened up what is the human related to visuality. It's very important, and it's so minutely understood when we think of just what's the visual device. What do we, yeah, I'll tell you what the visual device is, but let me tell you what it is when it isn't there. Then you know. Then you know. You don't need to just know what's right. You need to know what happens when it's wrong, when it's absent. And that's the second, I'll just give you this. I'm excited about this, of course. I love this aspect of thinking. The question the brain has is, what am I seeing? Answer is nothing. But for the consultant, for the operator who's a visual thinker, for says, why do I want visuality? The questions go like this. There are two sets. One is, what am I seeing? What does it mean? Then you can say, I'm seeing nothing. What does it mean? Golly, we're not connected. Golly, we're making mistakes. Golly, we have excess WIP. Golly, our customers are unhappy. What am I seeing? What does it mean? The second set is, what am I not seeing? What does it mean? And that is the question where you can just move right to the horizon. It's very important. Should I tell you the second example? Should I?
Yeah, please.
I know you have many more questions, but
Well, short,
thank you.
answer.
This is
Yeah,
of interest. The
absolutely.
second example that was in an unexpected place, I didn't see with my own eyes, but I was giving a presentation in Australia. And there were a lot of people in the room. I don't get to know them unless they come up. And this lady comes up and she says, I'm a nurse in old people's home, in home for the elderly. That's nice. Did you like the presentation? Oh, yes. But I want to tell you, I saw you 4 or 5 years ago. And I tried out what you said about borders, stinking little borders. This is me speaking now, little lines on the ground, on the floor. Who cares? She said. But I was thinking, I work with a lot of Alzheimer patients and patients who have dementia. That's why they're in our home, because they need a protected, supportive environment. And I work the night shift. And one of the troubles that we have is that we want to keep the door open so we can see what's happening, but we want to keep the door shut so people don't get up out of their bed and wander around and maybe find an open door and go out into the night. This has happened to us before. So I tried out your idea about borders as a pattern, and I put a border across the threshold on the ground. I did it with just some tape on the carpet to see if it would keep the person who was in the room in the room. It didn't. But then you know what I did? Widened it. And it did.
Yeah.
I widened it. The person, and I'm sorry, I'm going to make the connection with the cow. The person responded as the cows did, but it needed to be wide enough to open this idea of void. I don't know what's at the bottom of it. And she was elated and she came up to thank me for the idea. But I didn't. She was a thinker. And she said, I think this has got legs. I'm going to make this work. She widened it. It was fantastic. And I hope anyone who's listening will understand that visual devices, visual solutions come from understanding the process that I'm discussing now. The harvest is unlimited. This can really solve so many things in a factory and create great joy and connectivity, make us really happy that we thought of it. So
I think you have great stories here, and I mean, in every environment we can adjust the tools and devices to our needs, and that is where I think the thinking and the understanding what the need is would be very, very important and very helpful. I thank you very much for all of this. I mean, great information and great stories. But my question now would be, if you would design an ultimate visual workplace, what would it look like? What tools you would think are need to be there, and they are essential for people to be able to construct that visual workplace?
now, Nancy, I admire you greatly. That's an impossible question to answer in the time that we have. But I am going to give you the answer that I would tell you if we had 10 hours. But I want you to know that what you're asking me to describe is what that would look like. So I'm going to do it conceptually. It isn't actually a great question because it's once again conceptual. You're a conceptual thinker, so refreshing. The ultimate visual workplace would contain a workplace, whether it is an agency, a military depot, a continuous process flow, utilities, hardcore manufacturing, metal, my favorite places to work, hot metal, bent steel mills, hot rolling mills. I love that stuff. People who work in with fire, they are the coolest people in the world. There's no junk left in them. The fire just burns it all out of them. They're just lovely, full human beings. It's the fire that does it. It's so beautiful. What that workplace would look like is it would sound like many voices. If the devices had a voice, it would sound like a chorus. It would be the voices, the workplace that speaks for the operator in the cell, for the material handler, for the stock person, for the front office. It would hold their voice. And it would hold the voice of the supervisor, blending perfectly in that management role. And the CEO's voice would be down there on the floor as well, in the form of visual devices that gave him the information he needed to know that he was doing the job he was supposed to and how he could help. So what you have is a kind of orchestra. You have many, many, many visual devices, and you look for that balance. When I'm asked, I'm going to be going to the Netherlands next week and spend a couple of 3 days assessing a factory. It's actually 5 different sites, and the managers are going to be there, and they want my take on things. And what I'm going to be looking for is not a dozen visual devices, not 3 dozen. A visual workplace is created by visual thinkers, and it is populated by thousands of visual devices. You have to really change your ISO regulations, and if you're in pharma, you have to create ways of letting people have revisions, experimental revisions, so that they are engaged in improving their visual devices so they get the outcome they want. And so your regs have to, your regulation. I'm working with another company just beginning, in Denmark, and it's a pharma, lots and lots of money and resources, and their process for triggering and absorbing improvement is completely blocked by the regulations. The regulations are not there to stop good quality, to stop safety. So you have to negotiate with the people who put the regulations in place and say, we need to have a differentiation between what regulations are mission critical negative and what regulations will allow improvement to go on as a process. So it's that idea of many voices. And that's a lot of work to change a whole industry. But if you can think of it as a language, again, we go back to where we began, that visuality is a language, Nancy, then you get it right. Then it becomes a flow, and it becomes a joy to create more. You need to have the process, the protocol of visual thinking, which I map out in all my books. It's quite simple, and we'll do it another time. But if you get that, you do it by iteration. That's what it looks like. It looks like consciousness made physical, because the visual workplace is a physical workplace. So you're always going to see devices. But the layer that you get from that is connectivity. The workplace is unified. My work is about 2 things. It's about unity and identity. It's about individual identity, the individual visual thinker, the authentic, be it grumpy, be it happy, but that authentic person coming to work, bringing themselves and unifying that, allowing that diversity. You see, allowing that difference to blend into one. It's so beautiful. This is my work. I really love my work, and it's
See
been,
that you're very passionate about your work, and
it's been such a gift for
I like
me, as it is for you. I see the same vitality in you.
yeah, I think in fact working with people and trying to help them and bring these new elements to the workplace are very important. I think companies, when they don't focus on continuous improvement, when they don't focus on engaging their people and getting that visuality into the workplace, they're missing a lot. And you gave us a lot of examples, Gwen, about the negative impact of that and the positive impact for that on the employee experience, even on stakeholders experience. So I would like us maybe to spend a little bit time. You mentioned the fire fighters. If I would ask you this question, think about the visual management superhero. What would your name be as a superhero, and what would your superpowers be? Just like a brief summary just of our discussion.
I saw that question and I thought, are we even going to get that far? I'm surprised we get that far. But I have to say something first, because you have such a good following and because I'm basically here to share my knowledge. This is not what we are talking about, is not visual management. Visual management, and I can take you through a 1-hour presentation on that and demonstrate and prove it to you, is 10% of what a visual workplace is. 10%. And when people call it visual management, with all due respect, I cringe, because we're already thinking about visuality as something that is managing something else or managing me. But it's much more intimate than that and much more granular. So that's the big picture is visual workplace visuality, visual thinking, and a part of that is visual management, which is there to give us feedback. It's the feedback element of visuality. The superpowers, you know, if I were that hero and perfectly, I just feel as though I've been given so many gifts that all I want to do is give it back. I mean, my life is so interesting and I'm a curious person and I'm discovering things all the time. Even in talking to you, there were 1 or 2 bells that went off that I thought I need to follow that up and find out the next layer of answer. I would like to reach more people. And it's why I'm doing this. I want people to know what visuality is and to know that it is their own language. Now, management has to allow the paradigm to enter and support it and give people a learning curve, a time to demonstrate so that they see how powerful it is and how it solves problems they don't even know are there, that they are misnaming. So it's a darling question, but I don't know how to answer it. I have no idea. A cape, wings, I don't know. Better ears, straighter teeth, I don't know.
You've given us already a lot of good, I think, insights into what a superhero of visuality would be, and I like the layers you explained to our audience here. Is that it starts with a visual workplace, but visual management is just the feedback, and it's sometimes working with the Shingo model. We know that tools are good, but we should focus on the systems and the culture.
Yes,
Focusing
yes.
just on the devices and visual management, we're missing a lot. So thank you for clarifying this, Gwen. I think it's very important for everyone to understand the difference. Now, the tools are important, and innovation, creativity in bringing new tools, like the lady in the elderly home, what she did with widening the lines. So do you have any examples of innovative tools that people, maybe companies now are using in terms of creating that visual workplace? Something new you've encountered, innovative ideas that you think are important for our audience to know about?
I'm going to take a slightly different tack so I can give you an answer, because my habit when I see a great visual device is take a picture of it and try to figure out a way to fit it into one of my books, newsletter or something. But I'd like to say, for example, just talk about 2 things. These are my 2 next books. One is going to be on visual displays, production control boards, and any kind of display. And the other one is going to be about visual problem solving. Visual displays, what I would ask the listener to consider is whether or not their devices really represent not just the voice, but the conversation that goes on between visual device and the author or the user. Because what this is a visual device holds information, and I need it, I pull it to me. This is our dual question, which you know very well. What do I need to know? What do I need to share? What do I need to know? I make a visual device to capture that information, but it doesn't give me complete information, or it doesn't give it to me on time, or I've discovered another question under the first question. And what I want people to understand is Keep the conversation going with your device. And if it fails you, then improve it and do another iteration. You will notice your motion. You will notice that it stops and you need more. So make your device more powerful. And is what happens is that the workplace becomes rich with silence because people are listening to their devices and they're interested in whether or not this device fully satisfies my purpose. And if it doesn't, the device says, make me better. I'm yours. Make me do it better. Figure it out. And that's where people are really engaged in the invention. And they love their workplace because their workplace is about them. Even if they leave it behind because they're promoted or they move to another cell, they say, oh boy, another cell. I'm going to do it again here because it feels so good. It feels so good. So the superhero is the visual thinker who keeps going. And the superhero enabler is management who sees that and values it and wants more of it and listens and does not say, let's standardize everything. Here's my rule about standards, even though you didn't ask. You don't want to standardize too soon. And you certainly don't want to begin by saying, standard work for visuality. It's okay to have a checklist of standard work for supervisors and managers. And it's very important to do standard work when you are trying to accelerate the process. When you do lean, that's lean. Lean is about time. Visuality is about information.
Absolutely.
Those are two different things. Two wings of a bird. The bird needs both of them to fly. So the superpower is the person thinking and that relationship between the device. And I think if we go any further, we'll lose the thread. So I'm going to stop there and let you pick it up because I don't want to get too far afield.
You're sharing great information here, and I like you've mentioned earlier the CEO who needs also like information to receive information from the operations to be able to take decisions. I think it's all about information communication. I like the words you used about talking. I mean, talking devices. The language of visuality. All of these things are very important for us to understand, and we see these when we visit clients and we see that they focus on this. You feel it, like you said, you really feel it, you really see it. So if
I really, excuse me, Nancy, I really love that idea. And what I want to encourage managers to say, because you're in a position of power, is to say, how can I get more of that? Not let's standardize it. Let's take a snapshot. And if we are this good throughout, I want to say this about standards. I feel I must, is we say we don't want less than 3 different types of visual devices that accomplish the same purpose, even on a micro level, because we want to break this idea of a single solution being satisfactory or that it is static, that we must stop because this is as far as we can go. When we have 3, that 3 may be a consolidation of 12 that have, and then you negotiate. People learn tolerance, they learn to listen. I like my device, you like yours. Let me see yours first. We call that you go first, you go first. Let me see yours first. Okay, now I get a chance to show you mine. You've had 3 weeks. This is mine. Both of them are good. Why decide which is best? There's no best between good and better and good and good. So you want to have that as a value, as a principle of improvement, that 3 is what we say is the minimum if you want to standardize. And I want to say this was where I started before, and I just want to bring it around because people will be able to relate to it. Visual displays that are whiteboards with things written on it are only a beginning. You congratulate yourself for that beginning. You got the piece of paper out of your pocket. You put it up on a whiteboard. Good. Excellent. Now, listen to the whiteboard and listen to the questions that you form standing in front of that whiteboard that the whiteboard can't give answers to, and then make that board speak. And you have to have interactivity. You have to have moving parts. You don't have to begin there, but the conversation doesn't end just because you have a whiteboard. And companies that standardize on whiteboards, I just want to gnaw on my arm because they're taking a good thing and they're driving it into the ground. It's, we used to, can't think of an analogy now that goes back to the Stone Age, but, yeah. So the first wheel was a little rough cut stone that rolled and helped us move things. But that didn't keep us from inventing the airplane over the, over the millennia. So we have to keep going. So on the whiteboard, you do the same thing. That whiteboard, this is what we do in visual displays. We want the whiteboard to speak to us in different dimensions of meaning. One of the things that we use when we teach visual displays is a board in Japanese that I took this picture in the 1980s. And, it just looks like, what happened to this? What is that? It's the wrong language. But if you look at it, you start seeing these dimensions of meaning, the production schedule, and what's happening every single day. Triangle is upside down. The triangle is yellow. It's red. It's blue. It's right side up. The square, the same thing. And, the team stands in front of that board and they go, what about this? And they point to a single little piece. What about this? Because they're listening. And that's the way it is in visuality, that we are relieved of a tremendous burden of not only information that we don't have, but all of the mistakes that come from it. And we can flow. We can flow because we have a partner in the physical workplace. And that's what we mean by the workplace speaks. And you do the same thing in problem solving. Let's have a session on problem solving. And there's a way of creating that interactivity in problem solving that allows people to have their different views, but to come up with solutions and systems that are deeply important to the organization. So, yeah, all of this is so exciting. I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to hold forth. And your questions have been so great. And I hope that I've done a good job.
Yeah, it's been great. I think just as you started talking about the whiteboard as a beginning, I would like us maybe to to talk a little bit about the future. And with the AI-powered solutions and tools, where do you see visuality down the line? A couple of years from now, 10 years, 15 years?
Great question. And I have pondered this, and I don't have an answer. I have the same answer that the pundits have about, is AI going to replace us? And I don't see it. I see a partnership. I see a little bit of struggle in getting to know you, figuring out. And I see abuses, of course. But we have tremendous resources inside of us and inside of us together, working together to correct those abuses. We see that happening on the planet in real time, real fear. Real fear. You could cut it with a knife during COVID. I was in the United States and it was as though some fog had just descended upon my whole life and all the lives around me. But we figured it out and we're the stronger together for it. We still have some outliers, but I think it's that way with AI. I just don't know. Just don't know. I think we can go to the science fiction movies. We can go to like Serenity, one of my favorite sci-fi, or the first one with Chris Pine of Star Trek. Fantastic amalgamation, blending of the technical. All of those things make me happy. They don't exactly worry me. Where do I see it going? I see it in, we'll figure it out and we'll be afraid for a little while and we'll blame each other for a little while. And then we'll figure it out. We're just fabulous. We're going to make it. And visuality will prevail. Visuality hasn't even moved the dial yet. People don't. I want the person who never heard of visuality before tuning into this and saying, why don't I see something? Why don't you show me some visual devices?
That's why we're having this episode, because
Yeah,
I believe in it. I believe there's a lot
I
that we
know, I know.
could
God bless you.
learn from you and from Visuality.
It's very important. It's very important. And you work in particular in the Middle East. And I want to say that let's collaborate and I'm happy to share everything with you and your group. And you do visuality and bring visuality to the factories. There is such unnecessary suffering and losses without that language. If you remember that 50% of your brain, whoever's talking to me right, listening to us right now, is as we speak, firing at a billion points. It's a billion points per second. And I keep going back to the research I read on that. And I said, you mean 1,000, billion points per second, searching for visual information to answer the question, am I safe? And once I know I'm safe, then information related to purpose. Your brain is doing it now. And if you feel yourself irritated in listening to me and Nancy, it's because you're not getting enough to understand. You're seeking to understand. Your brain is made to understand so it can build on that and build you a happy life. So the whole thing works together. Yes.
And do you see
So many companies do not know about visuality or conflate it with lean, and they do little and-ons or color code. But it's the language. What would we be, you and I, Nancy, without language right now to connect us and to spur our thinking and to make us feel very interested? That's the way it is in factories. Factories are our life for 8, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, 24. If you're a senior manager, you should be worrying every minute.
Yeah,
Thank
our
you.
life takes, big portion of our life, right? Work takes big portion of our life. If I go back to our personal lives, where do you see people can apply visuality? Because a lot of things we do in business, we can teach them at home to our kids and practice them. So as part of our life, where do you
Yes.
see visuality in the
You
day-to-day
know,
life?
it's so interesting. When I was living in Portland, the next door neighbor had an worked in autism. Every parent knows this now, but people who aren't parents of an autistic child may not. And it's an area of great admiration, which is if what you want to do with a child who has communication soft edges, doesn't really connect, is to integrate them, find ways of integrating them. And visuality helps so much. Her name was Bonnie. Bonnie was the mother, and Bonnie laid out the silverware in such a way that the child could easily help to set the table. And that was something that the child looked forward to every night because she could see. Her eyes didn't need language. She didn't need to communicate in kind of superficial ways. She just knew about the forks and the spoons and where things went. And it created peace in the house and possibility and gave moment of celebration every single day of the child making that contribution. That's just one thing. It's a little bit difficult in a home because there's so much variety and it's so personalized that you don't want to get into someone's face and make them do 5S in their room. They'll hate you for it. They'll need therapy by the time they're 14, and you'll be paying for it. So
This is
it's
great.
a dangerous area.
Absolutely. And I like your example, and I think there's a lot, where we can use visuality in the workplace first, but also sometimes in our homes and in our lives. With this, Gwendolyn, I would like to really thank you so much for sharing with our audience here today your stories about visuality and about how to make it a reality, I think, and how to communicate and get this information to be part of the activities in the workplace and transform, I think, the workplace. I like the fact that you mentioned partnership with AI, which is very important, I think. And starting with the big picture, putting visuality into action, focusing on the human centric, these are new, I think, concepts for everyone that's gonna listen to our podcast. You are a superhero for visuality.
Oh, at last.
I like that you're a creative thinker and everything that comes around that. And I'm sure you're doing a great job with your clients on this. I've seen a lot of nice photos from your work in your books, in your trainings, and I think there's a lot that we can teach around the world and take the visuality concept everywhere. With this, I would like to thank you again and give you the space for a few more words before we wrap up our session today.
I want to thank you. I think what I want to thank you for is taking the time and having the interest to spread the word through these podcasts, through your own work, of course, but this is really kind of a global platform, and it allows you, I guess the word is curate, a series of sharings that sharing what you think is important. And I think with that mark on it, I'm very honored with your invitation. Thank you so much.
I think there's a lot that we can do all to make a difference. Thanks to all
Thank you.
our listeners here, and tune in for the next episode of the Excellence
Thank you so much.
This was Visuality in the Workplace, and thank you again, Gwendolyn.